Freemasonry is a secret, highly organized network of lodges and members who covertly influence political decisions, legal systems, and financial institutions to advance a unified agenda. At its core, this theory points to the order's rituals, symbols, like the square and compasses, and the historical presence of influential members as evidence of hidden power. In reality, Freemasonry is a fraternal organization that developed from medieval stonemason guilds into a social and charitable network. Lodges are locally governed, membership is voluntary, and activity typically centers on ritualized meetings, charity work, and mutual support. The belief in Masonic control rests on several psychological and sociological factors. Secrecy, or private rituals, create mystery. Prominent historical figures who were members, politicians, business leaders, are interpreted as proof of coordination, and symbolic imagery encourages pattern seeking. Empirical counterpoints include the decentralized structure of modern Freemasonry, no single global command, the public availability of many lodge records and rituals, and the absence of verifiable documentary evidence showing coordinated clandestine manipulation of major state institutions. When specific policy outcomes align with the interests of Masons who happen to hold office, the correlation is often selective confirmation rather than proof of a coordinated cabal. Illuminati is a shadowy, all-powerful elite group secretly orchestrating world events to establish a single global government. This belief traces back to the historical Bavarian Illuminati, founded in 1776 by Adam Weishaupt, which was a small Enlightenment-era secret society promoting reason and opposing monarchy and organized religion. The original group was banned in the late 1780s and quickly dissolved. But over time, the name Illuminati became a placeholder for hidden rulers pulling strings behind wars, revolutions, and financial crises. Popular culture often depicts them as a pyramid-shaped hierarchy, using symbols such as the all-seeing eye, owls, or pyramids to mark their influence. Supporters point to recurring motifs on currency, architecture, and entertainment media as clues of their dominance. Skeptically, there is no verified evidence of a modern, centralized Illuminati organization operating across nations. Global politics, while complex and influenced by powerful corporations and governments, functions in a fractured, competitive manner rather than as a monolithic secret order. The persistence of Illuminati theories demonstrates how people use simple, hidden-hand explanations for overwhelming historical events and contemporary crises that are otherwise chaotic and multifaceted. The conspiracy centers on Jeffrey Epstein, a financier who was convicted of sex crimes and accused of operating a vast trafficking network involving powerful politicians, business leaders, and celebrities. The narrative holds that Epstein's private island in the Caribbean, his jet nicknamed the Lolita Express, and his Manhattan townhouse were hubs for exploitation, blackmail, and secret deals. When Epstein was arrested in 2019 on federal charges of sex trafficking minors, he was placed in a high-security federal jail. Weeks later, he died by hanging in his cell. The official ruling was suicide, but circumstances surrounding his death fueled massive suspicion. Malfunctioning security cameras, inattentive guards, and missing logs all created fertile ground for the claim that he was silenced to protect influential figures. Central to the theory is the idea that Epstein collected compromising information to control or blackmail elites, and that his connections provided him immunity until exposure became unavoidable. Evidence confirms Epstein had links with many high-profile individuals, but the leap from association to coordinated conspiracy remains unproven. The unresolved questions about how he built his wealth, who was involved, and why oversight failed continue to drive speculation that his death was not accidental. QAnon is a modern conspiracy theory that took root in 2017 on internet forums like 4chan and 8chan. An anonymous figure calling themselves Q claimed to have top-level U.S. security clearance and began posting cryptic messages, called Q-drops. Followers interpreted these riddles as evidence of a hidden battle between former President Donald Trump and a global cabal of elites accused of child trafficking, satanic worship, and deep corruption. The central prophecy was the storm, a coming moment when mass arrests of politicians, celebrities, and business leaders would supposedly reveal the truth. Over time, QAnon absorbed many other conspiracies, linking 5G networks, COVID-19 vaccines, and secret government programs into its narrative. Despite repeated failed predictions, believers adapted by reinterpreting Q's posts, keeping the movement alive. No credible evidence has ever supported QAnon's claims, but the theory grew into a cultural and political force, shaping protests and influencing elections. Analysts describe it as a decentralized digital cult that thrives on community interpretation, distrust of institutions, and the emotional satisfaction of believing hidden knowledge explains a chaotic world. The New World Order conspiracy theory claims that a secret group of elites is plotting to establish a single global government. Proponents argue that wars, financial crises, and pandemics are engineered steps toward consolidating power under a hidden authority. They often link the NWO to groups like the Illuminati, Freemasons, or powerful international organizations such as the United Nations and World Economic Forum. Symbols like the pyramid and all-seeing eye on the US dollar are cited as clues of the plan. Historically, these ideas gained traction during the 20th century as globalization expanded and governments created international alliances after World War II. For believers, treaties, military interventions, and even new technologies are evidence of creeping control and the erosion of national sovereignty. Skeptically, while powerful nations and corporations do exert major influence, global politics is fragmented and competitive, not unified. There is no verifiable proof of a coordinated world government plot. Instead, the New World Order theory reflects broader anxieties about globalization, shifting power structures, and the fear that local freedoms are being overshadowed by distant, unaccountable institutions. The assassination of U.S. President John F. Kennedy in Dallas, Texas, on November 22, 1963, is one of the most famous and enduring conspiracy theories in modern history. The official Warren Commission concluded that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone when he fired 3 shots from the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository. However, many people have never accepted this explanation, pointing to inconsistencies in eyewitness accounts, the number of shots heard, and the trajectory of the fatal bullet. Popular theories suggest the involvement of the CIA, the Mafia, Cuban exiles angry over Kennedy's handling of the Bay of Pigs invasion, or even Vice President Lyndon B. Johnson, who directly benefited from Kennedy's death. The so-called magic bullet theory, which claims one bullet caused multiple injuries to both Kennedy and Texas Governor John Connally, is a particular focus of skepticism. Over the decades, official investigations, including the House Select Committee on Assassinations in 1979, acknowledged that a conspiracy was likely, but no definitive proof of multiple gunmen has ever been verified. The lack of closure and the secrecy of government files helped make the JFK assassination a central pillar of American conspiracy culture. The September 11, 2001, terrorist attacks killed nearly 3,000 people and changed global politics. The official explanation states that hijackers linked to al-Qaeda crashed planes into the Twin Towers and the Pentagon, causing catastrophic structural failures. Conspiracy theories, however, argue that the towers, especially World Trade Center 7, which collapsed later that day despite not being directly hit by a plane, showed signs of controlled demolition. Advocates point to the speed of the collapse, the appearance of explosions, and reports of molten steel at Ground Zero. Some claim the U.S. government or intelligence agencies either allowed the attacks to happen or orchestrated them as a false flag operation to justify wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, expand surveillance, and consolidate power. Independent engineers and the National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST, have explained the collapses as a result of intense fire-weakening steel structures, with WTC-7 falling due to uncontrolled fires and structural damage. No verified evidence of explosives has ever been found. Still, the sheer scale of the event, combined with secrecy around government intelligence failures, has kept 9/11 inside job theories alive as one of the most widely debated conspiracies of the 21st century. The moon landing hoax theory claims that NASA faked the Apollo missions, particularly Apollo 11 in 1969, when Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin became the first humans to walk on the moon. Conspiracy theorists argue that the United States staged the event on Earth, often suggesting a Hollywood-style film set to win the space race against the Soviet Union and distract from political troubles at home. Supporters cite evidence, such as the American flag appearing to wave in a windless environment, the absence of stars in lunar photos, and supposed anomalies in shadows and lighting. Some even claim filmmaker Stanley Kubrick helped produce staged footage, citing similarities between Apollo video and techniques used in his film 2001, A Space Odyssey. Scientists and engineers have thoroughly debunked these claims. The flag moved because of momentum in low gravity. Stars are absent due to camera exposure settings, and the lighting matches conditions on the lunar surface. Additionally, thousands of NASA employees, global tracking stations, and physical lunar rock samples confirm the mission's authenticity. Despite overwhelming evidence, the moon landing hoax remains one of the most famous conspiracy theories, fueled by distrust of government and fascination with hidden truths. Area 51 is a U.S. Air Force facility in Nevada that has long been the center of speculation about extraterrestrials and secret technology. Officially known as Groom Lake, the base was established in the 1950s to test advanced aircraft such as the U-2 spy plane and stealth bombers. Because of its remote location, extreme secrecy, and restricted airspace, Area 51 quickly became linked with UFO sightings and alien theories. The modern wave of speculation began after the 1947 Roswell incident, when a crashed weather balloon was rumored to be a flying saucer. Conspiracy theorists argue that the U.S. government recovered alien spacecraft and bodies, transporting them to Area 51 for reverse engineering. Claims also include hidden underground labs, secret weapons, and interstellar contact being covered up. In reality, declassified documents confirm the base was used to test experimental aircraft, explaining many UFO reports in the area. No credible evidence of aliens has been released. Still, pop culture, from films like Independence Day to countless documentaries, has cemented Area 51 as the symbol of government secrecy about extraterrestrial life. The myth persists because the base remains highly restricted and the government rarely comments on its operations. The chemtrail conspiracy theory claims that the white streaks left behind by airplanes, scientifically known as contrails, are not just condensed water vapor, but deliberate chemical or biological agents sprayed into the atmosphere. Believers argue that governments or shadowy organizations use chemtrails for purposes such as population control, weather manipulation, or spreading illness. They often point to unusual cloud patterns, lingering trails that seem to spread instead of dissipate, or increases in respiratory illnesses as supposed evidence. Some claim that heavy metals like aluminum or barium are being dispersed to alter climate, or even to experiment with mind control. In reality, contrails form when hot engine exhaust meets cold, moist air at high altitudes, creating ice crystals that can persist depending on humidity and temperature. Numerous scientific studies, including those by NASA and independent atmospheric researchers, have found no evidence of large-scale chemical spraying programs. Contrails have been observed since World War II, long before chemtrail theories emerged in the 1990s. The persistence of this conspiracy is tied to distrust of government, environmental concerns, and the visual mystery of jet trails in the sky, which invite suspicion among those seeking hidden motives. The Flat Earth theory asserts that Earth is a flat disk rather than an oblate spheroid, and that governments, space agencies, and scientists conceal this truth through staged footage, altered photos, and a global deception. Adherents point to everyday sensory impressions. Horizon looks flat, buildings don't tilt away, and water appears level, as intuitive evidence contradicting a spherical Earth. They also question satellite imagery, claim that circumnavigation can occur on a flat map, and allege that flights or naval navigation patterns are manipulated to maintain the illusion. The modern movement draws heavily from online communities, selective experiments, and mistrust of institutions, often recycling pre-scientific arguments from centuries past. Empirical refutation is extensive and multidisciplinary. Observations of ships disappearing hull first over the horizon, varying star fields with latitude, time zone differences, lunar and solar eclipses predictable by spherical geometry, circumnavigation routes that only make sense on a globe, and thousands of independent satellite images and telemetry all confirm Earth's roundness. Geodesy, Earth measurement, uses gravity, GPS, and geodetic surveying to model Earth's oblate spheroid shape to centimeter accuracy, which underpins navigation, telecommunications, and construction. The flat Earth idea persists largely because of cognitive bias, social identity within online groups, and a deep-seated distrust of institutions rather than because of new empirical evidence. Vaccine microchips/population control. This conspiracy theory surged during the COVID-19 pandemic but has roots in earlier vaccine skepticism. It claims that vaccines are secretly used to implant microchips or nanotechnology into people's bodies, enabling governments or powerful elites to track, monitor, or even control populations. Some versions allege billionaire philanthropists or global organizations are behind the scheme as part of a broader agenda to reduce population growth or enforce obedience. Proponents often cite patents for medical tracking technologies, misinterpret statements about digital health records, or exaggerate real advances in biotechnology. The theory gained momentum on social media when false claims spread that COVID-19 vaccines contained tracking devices linked to 5G networks. Scientifically, vaccines contain active ingredients such as mRNA, viral vectors, or inactivated pathogens alongside stabilizers and preservatives, all well documented. No microchips can fit through standard vaccine needles, nor has any credible evidence shown hidden tracking devices in vaccines. Public health agencies worldwide regulate and publish vaccine ingredients, while billions of doses have been safely administered. The endurance of this conspiracy reflects fear of medical technology, mistrust of pharmaceutical companies and governments, and the viral spread of misinformation amplified by online echo chambers. The COVID-19 lab origin theory suggests that SARS-CoV-2, the virus responsible for the global pandemic, did not emerge naturally from animals, but was instead created or accidentally released from a laboratory, most often pointing to the Wuhan Institute of Virology in China. Proponents argue that the proximity of the outbreak's epicenter to the lab, combined with reports of past research on bat coronaviruses, is suspicious. Some versions of the theory claim the virus was engineered as a bioweapon, while others suggest a laboratory accident led to its escape. Early in the pandemic, most scientists supported a natural origin, citing genetic similarities to coronaviruses found in bats and pangolins. However, uncertainty and incomplete data left room for speculation. U.S. intelligence agencies have since stated both lab accident and natural spillover remain possible explanations, but no conclusive evidence proves either. China's restrictions on international investigations and lack of transparency have further fueled suspicion. The lab origin theory gained traction because it fits into wider narratives of government secrecy, distrust of China, and fears of scientific overreach. Regardless of the origin, COVID-19 highlighted the vulnerabilities of global health systems and the dangers of misinformation during crises. Satanic ritual abuse, SRA, alleges organized networks of individuals who abduct, sexually abuse, and ritually murder children as part of satanic or occult practices. These claims surfaced widely in the 1980s to 1990s after high-profile accusations at daycares and in therapeutic settings. Core SRA assertions include secretive cult hierarchies, underground ritual sites, repetitive symbolic abuse patterns, and coordinated cover-ups by authorities. Investigators evaluated SRA claims by seeking physical evidence, forensic injury, grave sites, corroborating eyewitness testimony, and checking for independent witnesses or documentation. Over time, systematic reviews found recurring methodological problems in many prosecutions, suggestive interviewing techniques, leading questions in therapy and police interviews, and recovered memory practices that can create false recollections. Forensic examinations rarely uncovered the physical corroboration SRA proponents expected. Alleged mass graves and ritual paraphernalia typically lacked verifiable provenance. Scholarly analyses concluded that while individual instances of abuse did occur, the large organized networks described by SRA narratives were not substantiated by reliable evidence. The SRA panic illustrates how social contagion, sensational media coverage, and flawed investigative methods can produce widespread false beliefs with serious legal and personal consequences. Investigators now emphasize rigorous, non-suggestive interviewing, forensic validation, and skepticism toward claims that fit improbable, sensational patterns. The reptilian elite conspiracy claims that many world leaders, celebrities, and influential figures are actually shape-shifting reptilian beings from another planet or dimension. Popularized by author David Icke in the 1990s, this theory suggests that reptilian humanoids disguise themselves as humans while secretly controlling politics, finance, media, and major institutions. Believers argue that these beings feed on negative human energy and use wars, poverty, and chaos as tools to maintain dominance. They often point to supposed slips in video footage, where eyes appear to change shape or skin seems to flicker, as evidence of reptilian features breaking through the disguise. The theory combines elements of ancient mythology about serpent gods, modern alien lore, and fears of hidden elites. Skeptics explain alleged shape-shifting as video compression glitches, lighting effects, or deliberate digital manipulation. No credible evidence supports the existence of reptilian beings, yet the narrative persists because it transforms real frustrations with corruption and inequality into a dramatic story of literal monsters in power. The reptilian conspiracy reflects deep mistrust of authority and offers a symbolic way to portray leaders as inhuman, amplifying both fear and fascination in modern conspiracy culture.